The moment we've been waiting for, people. It's time to prepare for volatility to start to come back into the markets. We have important macro data coming out, not only tomorrow, the PCE data, but also Friday we get ISM numbers as well. So we're going to talk about what the market is pricing in as far as risk goes on today's stock market brief show. We did get slightly weaker than expected GDP numbers today, but the market remained rather unchanged. We did have a lot of Fed speakers out today, including Fed Bostic, who is a Dove voter. He reiterated that he sees the first rate cut potentially here in September, but he's comfortable being patient on policy and won't be a fast march to 2% inflation, and he does expect volatility. Another voter, Fed Williams, said that he's going to rely on the income and economic data to decide on the monetary path. And we also had Fed Collins out today stating, which is a non-voter, that it is premature to think that the Fed could cut in May. If we look at the meeting probabilities or the Fed fund futures, you can see March and May basically are sealed in. That will keep rates where they currently are. And looking out into June is when we see that rate cut potentially taking place. But like they have stated prior, it's going to rely on that data. Going out to December, we're only looking at 1, 2, 3 rate cuts for this year. So we'll see how that changes, especially after getting this data come tomorrow morning. So it's going to be important to pay attention to this, the dollar, and then also 10-year yields, as these intermarket assets have a big play on the overall market. So the market did remain unchanged. Real estate was the top performing sector, but across the board, not much going on. There was a couple assets worth noting. That was Google, which is a large market cap name. It was down 1.91%. NVIDIA was down 1.32%, but that's a rather small down day on NVIDIA given its current implied volatility and what we've been tracking. So if I'll go into Google really quickly, I wanted to just call out that it is below a declining 5-day moving average, but I did notice that we started to see some underlying strength here in the RSI on the 15-minute time frame, where you have a low and a higher low, and price is starting to coil up here as it undercut this prior swing low in early February. So if we do start popping up to the upside, perhaps watch for this high volume node over here and the declining 5-day moving average to come into play. Now, it's really going to be reliant on that macro data, which could very well affect all these assets across the board. So be aware of that. Apple is another one that had that positive divergence forming. It was right here forming. And we saw this big explosive move on the news that Apple was going to get out of the EV space. And then today it basically faded and saw a little bit more of a rally today. Overall, though, you can see that the price momentum oscillator has been picking up strength as the market Apple has been kind of going sideways in this choppy range. So what I would like to see here is if Apple can recoup the 5-day moving average and this start to turn back up, and that could possibly start a move higher to strike that 185 or potentially this gap fill. And then you'd want to catch that trend to the upside if that's going to be the case. We did get some news around Bitcoin. What we saw is a big intraday rally up to 65,000. We're going to round up, but in a very short 10 minutes time, we came all the way down to 60,000. And this was based off of some news, I believe, from Coinbase that users saw a $0 balance. That was somewhat of a glitch. I think most of this has been recovered. If we take a look at the Sailor to Shift tool, which allows us to get a good buy and sell trigger and then also signals. And you can see the last recent trigger was this buy signal over here in the early start of the year. Then we had a sell signal come into place, but there was no specific trigger, right, that came in. And the triggers are based off of breaking the high or the low of the prior week. So we had a sell signal. We didn't get below the low of that prior week, or it was this week. I can't quite recall. I'd have to zoom in, but we didn't break the low of that. So there was no trigger as we started moving higher. You can see throughout history, this has been pretty accurate overall, catching big runs and saving us from big drops in the past. The most recent buy signal was right here, but the one prior to that was right over here. And it's been doing pretty good to mitigate the move down, but catch the move up, mitigate the very small whipsaw, right, where you have this whipsaw candle. And then as it stands right now, you can see that we're clearly well into the buy signal territory. It's if this starts turning back down and we get the rate of change between Bitcoin and gold back below a 0, then we will start putting it back on note. But as it stands right now, fairly strong move overall. Now, like I said, we do have data coming out tomorrow morning. That's 1 hour before the market opens up. And then we have some stuff throughout the rest of the day too as well. 15 minutes into the open, we get Chicago PMI, we get pending home sales, we get more Fed Bostic, more Fed speak. We got a couple bill auctions, and we get more Fed speak there towards the end of the day too as well. Going into tomorrow or on Friday, we do have ISM manufacturing PMI and some other stuff there, including Michigan consumer sentiment. So this is going to add volatility in the overall markets. Now, the markets priced in roughly a $6 expected move, $6.4 expected move in the SPY, $64 expected move in the SPX, and we have yet to tag the lower or upper weekly expected move. As it stands right now, we're below the week-to-date anchored VWAP. Going into tomorrow, the market's saying, hey, we expect, right, as far as risk goes, our expectations are basically to come and close anywhere between this 509.53 for the daily expected move or the lower end 502.99. Now, as it stands, price action has been kind of interesting here. It's very mechanical drawdown, right? We saw this move up, mechanical move to the downside. We reclaimed the week-to-day anchor VWAP. We gapped lower today, right? And then we started moving, or that was the 20, yeah, that was today. And then we moved right back up into the week-to-day anchored VWAP. We pulled back down. We went back up. So it's kind of been forming this contraction pattern here as we're moving into a big macro data event. So I would just be on lookout to tag one of these levels. Now, if the data comes in hotter or cooler than expectations and it's more of a surprise, leave the door open to catch one of these upper or lower weekly expected moves too as well. As it stands right now, we're below an inclining 5-day moving average, so it's bearish, but it's bearish with caution because it is still inclining. What happens over time to be more bearish, it would be you'd want to see this actually start to turn back down and act as a level of resistance, which it's not currently doing in this current moment. Now, going into tomorrow, the most concentration really is right around this 5,100 from a gamma perspective level. So if we do start moving up, this could still very well act as a pinning point for the market. We saw price get up there, and over here on this day, we said most likely price, it's going to be hard to break from this level if traders don't start reaching up significantly higher, and it pulled right back in. We're not too far off of the gamma flip line, which is at 50.40. So right now, this is a check for the bulls as it's above the gamma flip line, but we're below the 5-day moving average, okay? But it is still inclining, so there are bearish things taking place, but really we're going into a macro data event, so we just got to pay attention to what our risk expectations are, and then where these key levels are going into tomorrow's trading session. So 5,100 would be to the upside. It doesn't mean that it can't get above it, but that would be the key level to really hone in on. And then watch out for the gamma flip line there too beneath us, which is roughly at 50.40. If you are going to be around the computer tomorrow, I will be going live on Twitch. So make sure to follow my channel. It's in the pinned comment section. And if you do, you'll get notified when I go live. That's all I got for you on today's episode, everybody. Have a good night.